Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fab Lab Digital Daycare. It is a very special day. I am here with my very, very, very good friend, Scott Hanselman. He's one of my favorite people, very close friend, Portland local, community member, and we're going to do something super awesome today. What are we going to do today, Scott?
We are going to try to code a video game in less than about 45 minutes from scratch. And if we're lucky, we'll be able to put it on a little kind of a portable Game Boy looking clone. And it's totally free thing that you can do, and you can follow along if it makes you happy.
You can follow along if you have an extra browser. You can follow along at
Makecode.com.
Makecode.com. We're going to get started in just a few seconds. But before we get started, as always, I have to give a quick shout out to my friend Nisha at Fab Lab. Thank you so much for being my awesome collaborator for these next 3 to 4 weeks of awesome kids STEM content and so much more here in the Digital Daycare. I also need to say a quick shout out thanks to our fabulous Portland local female founded businesses, Living Room Realty for giving the Fab Lab a home, as well as Rain, the growth agency, for being our awesome media partner. If you have not already, please go wash your hands, whip out your tablet or computer, and let's get to makecode.com.
That's right.
For our awesome free experience where we're going to make a game together. We're going to code a game together, and then we're going to, if we're lucky, stick it into a real live physical console that we'll be able to play with alone, with our friends, whatever. I'm so stoked. Okay, Scott, you ready?
All right, let's give it a try.
Let's do
So
it.
I'm going to switch over to here. So we've got my browser here. This is just a regular browser. You can use, I'm using the new Edge. You can use Chrome or Safari, whatever makes you happy. I just went to makecode.com. This is a Microsoft thing, but it's all free. None of this costs any money. And
Shout out to Microsoft.
yeah, this is Microsoft. And what's cool about it is that make code is what they call a platform. It's kind of a word that people use sometimes that's a little bit silly. They say this is a platform that you can build on. I'm going to move you up here. Our bandwidth is a little silly right now, so you might see Lindsay get bigger and smaller, and I'm going to rearrange her on the screen there. So a platform in a computer sense is what you build on top of. So make code is a platform you can make your games on top of. And what's cool is that you can make a game for Minecraft and literally change code in Minecraft. So if you are a Minecraft person,
Oh, wow.
you could code a house. You know how in Minecraft you pick up blocks and you build the house? Well, programmers like myself are really lazy. We don't like to do repetitive stuff, right? So I saw my sons building a house and I was like, this is really hard. Maybe I could write a program and say, this is a square. Why don't we put the blocks down in a square, and I'll write some code to say, go 10 and then turn left and then go 10 and then build a house.
So does 10 mean left in every programming language?
It would be like, imagine if I'm giving you instructions. If a way to think about computers versus real people are, with a real person, I could say, Lindsay, go to the store. But with a computer, I need to say, stand up, turn left 90 degrees, walk 10 steps, turn right. I have to give you all these little explicit instructions. So if I want my house to be 10 blocks and then turn left 90 degrees, I have to be really, really explicit. So I used 10 as the example of how many blocks. Maybe if I had a mansion, I would go 100 blocks,
Oh, wow.
you know?
And so just to backtrack a little bit, so you're saying that this is a platform and we're going to build our game on top of the platform. Is Minecraft a platform? And
Exactly.
okay, Minecraft is a platform and we build on top of that. So what we're looking at right here is a bunch of platforms that we can build on top of.
Love it. Exactly. So make
Very
code
cool.
has a language, a programming environment. An environment is a place that you program. And I could make code apps for Minecraft, for Lego. Maybe if anyone has one of these Lego Mindstorms in their school when you get back to school. If you go to Adafruit, there's a thing called a Circuit Playground Express. It's a little circuit board that you can get. All of these physical things plus Minecraft are platforms we can build on. And what we're going to do today is we're going to build an arcade game. And this is really cool because you don't need to buy anything. There's no physical object. Now I have one that I bought that we'll play with a little later, but it's totally optional and you can get it later.
Cool.
So we're going to do
Cool.
a virtual game, and then we'll play from there. So I'm going to click on arcade. So I went to
Awesome.
makecode.com, and if you want, you can go to arcade.makecode.com. And you can
Oh, and it'll go directly
go
to it.
directly
Cool.
there, right?
Okay.
So here I'm just signed in with my Microsoft account. If you have an Xbox, your Microsoft account is the same thing as your Xbox account.
And don't forget, you can log into Google Classroom with your Xbox. There are instructions on our Facebook page.
Okay. So if I scroll down, there's some tutorials, and actually the MakeCode team has been doing live daily coding lessons. So if you enjoy this, you can spend time with them, and there's some resources there. They're streaming on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
These are all games, and what's fun about these is that these are games that other kids have made that you can go and check out. So sometimes it's a game, and sometimes it's just something fun, like how to make fireworks or make a paintbrush. So what we're going to do, I think, is let's make a game where we chase pizza. Okay?
Let's do it.
So I'm going to click on
I
this.
had pizza over the weekend.
There you go.
Lots and lots of pizza.
So I'm going to click on the tutorial, and it says we're going to make a game. And what's going to happen is you have like 10 seconds to chase the pizza. It raises your score if you catch the pizza. And if the time runs out, then the game is over. Okay? So we're going to hit Start Tutorial. And what you're going to see is on the left-hand side, here we go. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make 2 sprites. Have you ever heard that word sprite?
Only when referencing a beverage.
So this is like when you play like Mario or a little person is running. Mario, you know how he runs? Someone had to draw each frame of Mario running, and each one is a sprite. And we refer to as Mario and the mushrooms and the blocks and all the little things.
Yeah.
Each one's a sprite, so we have to draw those. So let's hit OK. And you're going to see this environment show up here. And on the left-hand side, we see our virtual Game Boy. It's got a little screen. You can see it's got a D-pad, a little joystick on the left, A button and B button. That's why we don't need to buy anything, because we have one virtually right there.
Very cool.
Okay. And on the left-hand side here, we've got a number of choices. We see we've got sprites and controllers and loops and different stuff, and we're going to click on those to build our game. So when our game starts, you see it says on start, and it looks like a dinosaur, and a dinosaur has like a mouth here. That's where we're going to put our instructions inside that dinosaur mouth.
Okay,
So-
cool.
Let's read our tutorial here. In the scene drawer, here's scene, set the background color block into the on start block. So let's click on scene. I'm going to drag this out. Now watch the dinosaur.
Cop.
Okay. So if I just have this floating around, that's an instruction. That's like a shopping list. It's a thing that I'm telling the program to do. I'm going to say on start, bloop, set background color to, and I'm going to click on this gray bit here. What color do you want the background to be?
Ooh, I'm loving that purple or that yellow or the blue. Yep, whichever.
You
I love
like
all of them.
the Fab Lab blue?
Yeah, let's do Fab Lab Blue.
There we go. So look, the program is already running. So we are literally running an instruction on the left-hand side there. Isn't that cool?
That is very cool.
Okay, so on start, set.
So wait, did we just code something?
We just coded something. Now this is called block coding. We're moving the block around.
Coding.
And at the
Very
very
cool.
end, I'm going to show you that, in fact, all this time, we've been coding in JavaScript. And you may have heard that term JavaScript before.
I have heard of JavaScript.
Right.
Yeah, JavaScript.
And what's cool about this is that you can almost imagine front stage and backstage. This is the block, and then we're going to flip it over, and on the behind the stage, behind the scenes is JavaScript happening. All right, let's go to the next step. Okay, here we did our background color. The gray oval there, set background color to blue, and we see that that changed. And of course, if I changed it, pause, resets, and runs, change it back to Fab Lab Blue, click, 1000, done. There we go.
Very cool.
Okay, here's a sprite. Now here's where,
Okay.
if I make mistakes, this will be where it happens. And you got to watch for this. Open the sprites and drag out a block called set sprite. and we're going to make a new player. So we got to figure out who our player is going to be. So I'm going to click on sprites,
Okay.
and we're going to say
Ooh,
set sprite. Got some choices.
this one looks
here.
more complicated.
It is more complicated. So I'm pulling out set sprite, and I'm going to snap it in like a puzzle piece. You see how it snapped in and how the on start got
Oh,
bigger.
and it just. Mm-hmm.
That on start is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And these are in order, right? So first step, set background color. Second step, set the sprite. We don't know what a sprite is yet. It's gray. Just like the background color, it's gray. We don't know what we're doing yet. Now, draw your player by clicking on the gray square. All right, let's do this. So I'm going to click on that. And then they give you a paint program.
Ooh, and we can manually draw a player?
We could manually draw a player, or we can pick from a gallery.
I picked Taco.
You want to talk? So Taco is going to chase the pizza? Excellent. Okay, so here's our taco. Now this is interesting. You see how big? It looks like a big mush. That's because we're zoomed in. But if I hit done, see how it's small? It looks perfect.
So it was pixelated before. Now it's an image. I can discern what the image is.
Yeah, it's a little hard when you're doing pixel art. You have to decide what it should look like. And if you look in the lower left corner here, it says 16 by 16. That's how many dots our taco is right now. And we could make it a whatever color taco we want. We could draw, change it. We could make our sprite. We could even animate the taco. So set my sprite to a taco of kind, and then we have a choice here: player, projectile, enemy. We're just going to make it a player. Okay? All right, now we have our application running, and it's on Fab Lab Blue, and we have a taco, but it doesn't do anything. This is not a very good game.
It's just chilling.
It's just chilling. So
kind of boring.
We had a sprite. That's where we got our taco. We had our scene that we set our background color. You can see the colors line up here. Now we need to make it so we can actually control this thing. Move my sprite with buttons. Let's pick that up. I'm dragging it out. Now I can put it here, but I really want to put it in order, right? Because I made the sprite here, and now I want to move it with buttons. And I can click on this plus if I want to, because they're hiding stuff from me. This is a thing that computers do a lot. They try to make it easy, and they've hidden a few things. So if I hit plus, what do you think I'll see underneath that?
I think that you'll see more options.
Yes, exactly. So look, what's going on here?
Is that the... Oh, I don't know. My first guess is that it's the pixel, like the 16 by 16. Well, like the sizing.
Yeah, it's how far you want the thing to go. So that's actually the direction. And like, does it go 100 to the left? Does it go 10? How fast and how far should this sprite move when we click on the buttons? Okay. So let's try this. Now here's the cool part. We've only done these three things. We set our background color. We set our sprite. We said we can move it. Now look, on the left-hand side here, I can click this button. Now we've got our game. Look at that.
Very cool. That's so awesome, Scott.
Okay, so this is a game where the taco moves around.
And any kid can do this right now with internet connection.
Absolutely. Anyone with a browser
Very
can
cool.
give a Chromebook or whatever makes you happy. But our game doesn't have any scoring. There's no pizza. We promised pizza. We've given them tacos. Totally unacceptable. Let's keep going, shall we?
Yes.
All right. So what do we want to do? We need our pizza sprite. So we're going to go back over to sprites. And let's grab another one of these. We've seen this one before. Set my sprite to another kind of sprite. And then that'll be our pizza sprite. So what we're going to do is rename it, because my sprite 2, that's not a very good name, right? Let's make that something better. So I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to rename. That's called a variable.
Okay.
So we're name that pizza. And a variable should have a good name so you don't get confused. I don't want to name the taco one pizza and the pizza one taco. Now, is the pizza a player?
The pizza is what could be if we make it.
That's a good point. So in this
Yeah.
case here, the taco is us, so that's a player. Do we want to make this a two-player game where it's a player? I think right now the pizza is going to be a food.
Yeah, let's make it a food.
So we'll click here and make it a food. I could make it
A food for our player to eat.
exactly. Okay, so we've made it a food. And this is kind of interesting. This isn't the way you usually expect a sentence to look, right? Set pizza to Sprite of kind food. It's kind of English, but it's kind of awkward English, isn't it? That's the way programming is, I'm afraid, because you have to be really, really specific when you do programming.
So no flowery language.
No flowery language. And there's actually
I would be a terrible program.
there's a joke about programmers where a programmer's spouse says, "I want you to go to the store and get some bread and some eggs, and if they have eggs, get 12." And the programmer comes back with 12 loaves of bread. And the person said, "What did you do?" And they said, "Well, they had eggs." The programmer thinks if they have eggs, then get 12 bread, which was the thing we just talked about. So if you're not really specific to your computer, you'll see weird and wacky things happen like that. Okay, so let's get our pizza.
So much is being explained in my old WordPress days.
Now you understand why certain people think a certain way. So right now we've got our taco, but our pizza has no sprite. So let's click on that. We can draw something, or we can again pick from the gallery. There's our pizza right there. Do you want a messy pizza here?
I definitely think we need a messy pizza. That looks delicious.
That's lovely. All right, cool. So now we have taco v pizza. Okay. Okay. So we've set our sprite for the pizza. We've got our player sprite. Cool. Now, here's the part where we actually need some rules, because right now, if I run my application, I have a taco versus a giant pizza, but there's really there's no score. They don't really talk to each other. They're not friends. We don't know the relationship between the taco and the pizza. We want to make it so if the taco eats the pizza, we get a point.
Okay, so let's do that.
Okay, so we need an if. We need a on, and this is weird English again, on when the sprite overlaps the other sprite, do something, right? If. We want an if. So let's see what that looks like. I'll just put it down here. If.
And where did you get this? Where did you get the blue box?
Yeah,
you got it from Sprite.
So I opened up the Sprites toolbox, and inside there I've got choices for things we can do with sprites.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So these are things we can do to sprites and things we can do to controllers, and then other more advanced things that we'll do later. So here is where we set up our sprites. Here is where we moved our sprite around if we wanted to. And here, it's another, looks like a dinosaur, looks like a mouth or an alligator. Looks like we can say on, if it is the case, or on the moment that this thing happens, then do something. So it says here, drag in on sprite overlaps. Okay. Now, the second player here, we got to think about this. We got to get our order right, otherwise we might be wrong. When the sprite that is the player overlaps the sprite that is the food, then do something. But you see how it says other sprite? That's not the name of our sprite, right? We got to make sure we understand the sprite that's a player overlaps any other sprite that's a food. So we're separating our things by type. Okay. And now let's go to info. This is something we've never seen before. Info is another drawer. These are called drawers. When our taco touches our pizza, we should get a score. We should get a point for that. So let's drag in change score, and we're going to put it in here. Now,
this is awesome.
What if I put change score like there? What would that do?
Ooh.
If I said on start,
then we just start with a single point.
Yeah, and look, we did actually. If you look in the corner, let me zoom in again. That would start us with a point. So you might think, oh, I should put that there, but really we want to, oops, look at that. I grabbed the whole thing. I just want to grab that piece. You might find yourself in a situation like this where you need to kind of break these apart. And it's okay if you get confused because they're just puzzle pieces. You can just drag them. There you go. So
It's so great.
on start
If
is
you're
set up.
if you're just joining us, I am here, Crazy Aunt Lindsay, in the digital daycare with my friend Scott Hanselman, who is an incredible programmer, dad, and just fun time maker. We are in makecode.com, and we are making a game today with code. We're literally learning how to code together in this awesome platform that's been created for us. We're in the arcade. We're making pizza eat tacos, or tacos eat pizza. Sorry, Scott, keep going.
All right, and I'm going to just rearrange you for a second because sometimes in my tool here you get
I'm teeny tiny again.
You got small. You'll come back. So when the player overlaps the other one, you change the score. Now, you might not want to make a taco pizza game. You might want to play something else. So you can do that. If you want to have flowers that play with Super Mario or whatever makes you happy, you can do that. That's the thing that's so fun about coding is you can do whatever makes you happy. So we're going to change the score. And let's try it. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to run around. Look what happens. When I'm overlapping, look at my score. So it's touching, but it's kind of not really fun because the pizza just sits there. The pizza's just chilling. I want
to catch the pizza.
I want to catch a pizza, exactly. I want a pizza that runs away. Okay? So why don't we make the pizza move randomly when we touch it?
Let's do it.
That makes it a challenge because right now our score is just not, it's an infinite score. Okay, so I'm going to drag the set position. I'm going to drag it down here. So when they overlap, change the score and then move it. So let's move pizza to somewhere else. Okay, so we're going to set the pizza's position somewhere else. Now this is where things get a little interesting. Look what happened in the corner here. What's going on up here?
Well, it's just up in the corner. What is he doing up there?
Why is our pizza over here?
Let me see our code and maybe I can discern why. Because the X and Y is a little janky.
Yes.
We have to move it into frame.
Now, if I pick this up and I move it out, our pizza's here. But to your point, if we put it in here, now, this is another interesting thing. Sometimes people say, well, hang on, my application has a bug. And you have to ask yourself, is this a bug? Or is it the computer's fault or is it my fault?
And a bug is when something goes wrong.
Exactly. And in fact, a bug is named after a real bug that was found in a computer in the 40s when they were actually trying to debug and there was a dead moth inside a computer.
And I think that was actually Katherine Johnson's discovery. It was a woman in STEM. That I'll have to fact check that, but I'm almost positive Katherine Johnson had something to do with it.
Yeah. So this isn't a bug. It's just my mistake. It's not the computer's mistake. In this case, we told it together, go to 0.0. Okay. So let's fix that. So this can be a little bit confusing. Because how big is this screen? Well, I know because I read the instructions that there's 160 dots by 120 dots. So it's not quite square. So that's good. And you mentioned, why is it in the upper corner? It's in the upper corner because that's 0. Oops, look at me with my mouse not doing a good job. 0. We'll just say that's 0.0. Or a happy face. I don't know what that is. That's 0.0.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do some math. There's actually a drawer for math.
Ooh.
Okay. We're going to pick a random number.
Yeah.
Now this little block here can be put somewhere, but you see how it grays out? It kind of looks uncomfortable. That's because it's not where it's supposed to be.
Okay. It should be in one of the mouths, in one of the dinosaur mouths?
Exactly.
Cool.
But more specifically, you see how it's not a puzzle piece. The math one is not a puzzle piece. It kind of looks like it wants to go in one of the other ovals. If it was
Yeah,
a
it
puzzle
does.
piece, it would have a little tooth like that, right? So let's pick up that and let's drop it inside. You see how it turns yellow? There's X. I'm going to pick
Ooh.
another one, and there's Y. Okay?
Oh, this is so cool.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so set pizza to a random X and a random Y. Now, this might be a little advanced depending on your age. So let's just remind ourselves what that means. This is 0 over here, and the number gets bigger as we head in this direction. And this is Y,
Okay.
and the number gets bigger. So over here is I don't know how to write with my mouse, 160, comma, 120. Sorry for my
Okay.
bad writing. I'm using my mouse.
Our bad virtual
Yeah, virtual
penmanship.
penmanship. Okay, so if it's 160 by 160, we don't want to send the pizza to 1000, 1000. That would be all over the place. So let's change our number. Let's pick a number between like 10. That way it's not on the edge,
Okay.
and 160, and then 10 and 120.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So
Oh,
it's
there
kind
it
of
is.
it just showed up randomly there. That's interesting. Okay. And then I think that our countdown, we need a countdown because I want maybe a few seconds to go chasing my pizza. If this thing happens, right? Maybe
Okay.
we have 10 seconds to find our
And
pizza.
would it,
So
okay.
let's go to info, start countdown. So I think we should start the countdown as soon as the pizza moves. There you go. Look. Look right there in the okay.
So
So we're
good.
going for 10 seconds. What happens at the end? I don't know. Game over. Okay. So
Game
all
over.
right. So we have to
Boo.
touch the pizza.
And we only
We
had
only
one
had 1 point
point.
because we didn't do anything. Okay. So let's try this now. I'm going to hit finish, and then I'm going to open my app now, and now I'm going to go and get the pizza. So watch the timer. Every time I touch it, it
Every time we
resets
touch
to
it, we get a
10.
point.
And look at my points. Okay. Oh, I can go diagonally.
I get it.
Okay, so now I've got 8 points. I'm gonna fail to get the pizza in time.
No.
So I got an 8. The game
And the
over
new high
part was
score.
done for you automatically, right? So here's the cool part, okay? You can publish these games. You can make a game, and then you can save it and give it to your friends. But remember
That is so cool.
Yeah. Remember how I said we were going to put this on a real device?
Yes.
So if you go to MakeCode and you look at
Wait.
arcade.makecode.com.
Before you go any further, if anybody uses this program to make a game, I'm personally going to make several games over the next couple of days. I'm pledging over the next between now and Friday, I'm going to make at least one game a day, and I'm going to make sure that it's stashed in the makecode.com atmosphere in the environment, but also I'll post it to my Twitter, I'll post it to my Facebook, I'll post it to my Instagram, and if you guys want to play, definitely do the same, but tag me in your games. I want you to send me your games, have your parents email me, tweet me, whatever. I would love to see and play with your games.
Awesome. So if you go to MakeCode and you look at the hardware, I'm here at arcade.makecode.com/hardware. This is totally optional. You don't have to spend any money to do fun coding online. But these are different companies that sell different small devices that let you, each one of
Very
these
cool.
all works. And if you have a Raspberry Pi, you may have heard of Raspberry Pis, you can get these. Now I have this one here. It's out of stock right now, but it's a little game deal. It's got little buttons. And then what I did is I put it into a little box, you see? Put it into a little enclosure. It's just a acrylic. These are super fun, and what's great about this device is you just plug it in with USB. You don't need to install anything. This is super important. You don't have to install anything, any drivers. You don't need your parents' help. You just plug it in. And what's cool about it is it shows up on your computer like it's a disk drive.
Whoa.
So look here.
Okay.
Here's my I'm on Windows. You might be on a Mac. I'm going to turn it on. Okay. There's a little switch on the top. So I just turned it on. And look.
I'm watching along with everyone.
It shows up. It's the E drive. It might be D on your computer. It might be different. But it just is a disk drive. Okay. I'm going to go back to my game. And there's a download button here in the corner. So I'm going to click download, and it says, hey, which kind of machine do you have? I have this one, so I'll click on that. It's going to start spinning down here in the corner, and it's going to make the game and says, hey, I'm going to download this game. So I'm going to hit save, and then all I have to do is take my E drive, and here's my Chase the Pizza game. I'm going to drag it over here, drop it, and I want you
We're making a game. This is
to,
so cool.
I'm going to try to zoom in on this for a second, so bear with me.
I believe in you, Scott. Oh, it's our pizza game. Very cool.
So I've got the actual game here. It's got a little speaker. It's your game. So you can make a game and you can put it on a real hardware and you could give it to your friends if they have the same thing. Or again, they can play it virtually on the screen. And if you have an Xbox controller or a joystick, you can plug it in and play it in your browser. That
is so cool. Wow.
Woohoo. Oh,
this is go ahead. Yeah.
One last thing. Remember how I told you that there's the blocks that we're looking at? We made our game with blocks. I can click on JavaScript
and see the whole code.
And see the actual code. So if you are maybe a little more of an expert or you know what you're doing, you can see, remember when we wrote that code, when the sprites overlap, when the food touches the player,
this is the language.
See, look at that pizza set position right there. Remember this?
This is so cool. It's like Rosetta Stone for programming.
The blocks wrote the JavaScript for us. So you can do whichever one makes you happy.
This is so cool. This is one of my favorite projects, and I'm super excited to bug you every day for the next few days because I'm going to be making these games. I'm going to be making so many games. It's going to be ridiculous. Thank you so much, Scott, for showing us all of this amazingness. Do you want to add anything? Would you like to share any last words with our audience?
I just want to remind everybody, the kids and the parents that are watching, is that if you go to makecode.com, we also have an online learning section, and they're doing live streaming as well. Every day, so you can go and check out their YouTube as well. They've got a whole schedule here of the stream, and they're going to have some guest all-stars, and they'll go all the way down into advanced coding, and there's the schedule for the next several days.
This is so great. I will for sure be in some of those 6 a.m. classes. I can't wait to learn more coding. I've been looking for ways to get more involved in coding and learn more about coding. There's so many different languages. This makes it so easy and a lot of fun. I feel a new obsession percolating. I can feel it bubbling. Thank you so much to Scott Hansel for joining us in this very special episode of the Fab Lab Digital Daycare. I'm super stoked to do more of this. But first, what am I going to do? I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to meet you in the Fab Lab Active Hour for some awesome exercise. I'll see you there.
All right, 3, 2.
What's up, everybody? It's Crazy Aunt Lindsay, and I'm here with fitness coach Cooper Bruner from cooperbrunner.com. He's here to do an awesome active hour here in the Fab Lab. Take it away, Coop.
Hey, how's it going, guys? So here's the deal. Before we get started into our warm-up, I want 3 things from you guys. Number 1, a positive attitude. You guys got to get off the couch, put those potato chips away, and number 2, I want you to smile throughout the whole workout. Enjoy this workout. It's going to be great. I'm super pumped to be doing this with Lindsay. It's going to be fun.
With
And
who?
Number 3 with Lindsay.
With who?
With crazy Aunt Lindsay. My bad. I was like, did I say that wrong? And number 3, I want you guys to be intense, but at the same time, have fun. This is what we're doing here at Active Hour with Fab Lab. So, for our warm up, we're gonna start it with shaking it out. Shake out your upper body, get your neck loosened up, because we're gonna be doing some sit-ups. We're doing some push-ups, so loosen up the shoulders. A few more seconds here. Loosen it all up. Loosen it up. And now we're gonna start with the legs. Start bringing it down. Loosen up the calves. Loosen up the ankles. Stretch it all out. Move everything around, because we're gonna have a great workout. Right, Lindsay?
Yeah.
All right, now we're gonna do airplanes. You're gonna keep your hands straight out right here. And then we're gonna start with the right arm, giant circles, just like this. Giant circles for 10 seconds. You're gonna loosen up the shoulders with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're gonna switch. We're gonna go with the left arm, giant circles. Get it nice and loose. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Toe touches. Gonna bring it all the way down. Gonna stretch it out. Get nice and loose. Stretch those toes, just like that. Get as low as you can, guys. Try to touch the ground. We're doing it for 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're gonna get into basketball stance, stretch things out a little bit. And we're gonna start with the right leg and stretch out the right quad here. So we're gonna go all the way down here, stretch that right leg out for 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch it to the left leg. Oh, get a nice stretch. Try to touch your toes with both feet or both hands. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And shake it out. Shake out those legs. All right, now next stretch, we're gonna get the right quad. Gonna raise this up, stay balanced on our feet. I know it's tricky. Just try to stay balanced, keep your hips forward, like this, keep your hips forward. We're gonna stretch out that quad. How are you looking over there?
I feel great.
Feel good, nice and loose?
Try to concentrate.
Yeah, a lot of balance stuff. All right, 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Shake it out. Shake out that quad. We're gonna switch it. Try to stay balanced. You can use your right arm. Keep yourself balanced with your hip. 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Now shake it out. Shake it off. About to get started. Strength and conditioning piece. Let's do it, Fab. All right. So we're gonna go 3 rounds. We're gonna start with inchworms. I'm gonna show Lindsay what we're gonna be doing here and show you guys as well. So we're gonna go all the way down to the ground. Stretch it right here. Then come back up with our feet. We're gonna be doing 5 reps of those. Then we're doing hip bridges. We're gonna get down on our yoga mat. And we're gonna bring our hips up, or legs up. So it's gonna look like this. 1. Hips all the way to the sky. 2. We're doing 5 of those. And then we're gonna finish with jumping jacks.
Okay, I can do that. Can you guys do it?
Can you do jumping jacks?
Can you do jumping jacks?
Just right here. 5 jumping jacks.
Awesome.
3 rounds. All right?
Okay, I'm ready.
So we're gonna start in 5 seconds and let's get it going. All right? 5, 4, 3. Starting with inchworms. 2, 1. Let's go. Get those inchworms.
Do we stand back up at the end? Oh.
Yes, you have to move your feet up and then go back to your original position. So it looks, yeah, just like that. And then next rep, put your feet forward too.
My feet forward?
Yeah, so bring the feet coming up forward.
Oh, and like this?
Yep. just
Oh,
like that.
I
That's a full
see.
rep.
Okay.
So coming down with your hands, and then moving up with your feet. Do 5 of those. Bingo. Nailed it.
Awesome.
And then now we're gonna do hip bridges. So we're gonna lay down on our yoga mat, then bring our hips to the sky. 10 reps. 2, 3, 4, 5, halfway there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Rest for a few seconds. Then we'll jump into jumping jacks.
Woo!
5 seconds, we'll get started. My mat keeps moving.
Mine too.
We gotta stick to the social distancing here.
Good job. Social distancing.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Jumping jacks, 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the first circuit. Got 2 more of those, 2 more rounds, and that'll be the first circuit right there.
I love it. So good.
Hope you guys are enjoying it right now. I know that a lot of you have been stuck on the couch and not being able to exercise, so the Fab Lab wanted to come up with a great workout for you guys. So we're only not even halfway there, so you guys got to keep pushing it, stay positive, keep working hard. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Let's do those inchworms, all right?
Cool.
3, 2, 1. Inchworms. We're doing 5. Really stretch it out. Whoo. Two more.
I can do one more.
Really stretch it. Oh, that's 5. Whew. Now shake it out. When you're done with 5, shake it out. All right, hip bridges. 10 of them. 3, 2, 1, and go. 1. Raise those hips. 2, 3. All the way up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, jumping jacks. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, jumping jacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Woo! I like it. I like it when
My
we're
inner
singing.
drill sergeant's coming out.
It's great. All right, that's round 2. We got one more, guys. One more round.
Inchworms, right?
Inchworms.
Okay.
All right, so a few more seconds here. You can grab a drink of water if you need it. But we're gonna get started in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's go. Inchworms. Whew. That's 1. Feel the burn in the legs. I love it. 3, Last one.
How did I do it before you?
You already done?
Yeah, jeez. I did 3 that way and then 2 this way.
That's probably why I was not giving myself space. All right, 5. Woo! Let's go. Hip bridges. We're doing 10. I'm gonna move my mat here. Okay. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Raise it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Halfway there, guys. Keep pushing. 6, 7, 8. You guys are killing it. 9 and 10. Woo! Woo! Here we go. Last exercise for the circuit.
And I want you guys to count with us.
Let's do it. In 3, jumping jacks. 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Woo!
Good job, guys. First set, first circuit is done. Let's grab some water, because I know you guys have been busting your booties, doing some great work here. Get some water. I got some water. Nice, quality, cold H2O.
Nice. Nice scientific reference.
Right? Keeping it consistent.
Amen.
Okay, so before we get started, I want to explain to you guys the next exercises that we're going to be doing. It's 3 exercises, 3 rounds. We're going to do star squat jumps. Really,
Star squat jumps.
star squat jumps. So what that looks like, guys, is we're going to get in a squat, come down to a squat, and we're going to jump up like a starfish. Come down, starfish.
I love this exercise. Let me move my water out of the way.
Yeah, watch your feet. Make sure you have enough space, because we're going to get after it in these star jumps. And then we're going to do some push-ups, normal push-ups, just like this. Boom. And we're doing 5 of those. And then we're going to jump into speed skates.
I can't do a push-up.
If you can't do a push-up, guys, just go on your knees and make it work. Like that.
And don't forget, guys, Crazy Aunt Lindsay's fitness goal for these 2-3 weeks is to do 1 full push-up.
Let's go.
So thank you.
Making it work.
Right.
And then speed skaters, those are a little tricky, but basically what you're doing is you're going side to side like this. Well, wow, I just butchered that. Like this.
Okay.
And we're doing 6 reps.
6 reps. Okay.
3 on each side. So 1, 2, and then we'll do 6 total.
Let me try like this.
So it's like
Oh.
boom, boom. It's kind of hard to start, and then you get in a rhythm. Yeah.
Okay.
So you kind of have to jump.
I really like this. This
Boom.
is gonna be great. Okay.
3 rounds. We'll start with the star squat jumps. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Star squat jumps. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I don't know if I'm doing that right. I don't know if I'm
Dude, do one right now. Let me see it.
Okay, hold on. Woo! I gotta catch my breath. My head is all like this. Okay. My spots are always terrible.
Yeah, just like that. Just like that. It's tough to get a rhythm.
Okay.
But once you get down, come up, boom.
Okay. I'll
Just like
practice.
that.
I'll practice at home. Here and at home.
All right, push-ups. We're doing 5 of these. All right, in 3, 2, count with us. 1, let's go. 1. Try your best, guys. If you can't do it, go on your knees. Ready? 1. 2 more. You got this. Let's go, Crazy Aunt Lindsay. 5.
I'm great at it. I'm the best at push-ups.
All right, let's finish up with the speed skaters.
Okay.
A little tricky to start, but you're gonna jump. 1, 6 of them. 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's great.
That's all she
I love
wrote.
these. Okay.
2 more rounds of these.
Okay.
If you need water, grab some water. I'm gonna grab some water.
Okay. Let's clap it up Coach Bruner. Thank you for helping us with Active Hour. Woo!
No, I'm loving it with you guys. You Fab Labbers are crushing it. We're about halfway there, guys. So keep pushing, keep smiling, keep working hard. 5 seconds. Let's do this. 3 star squat jumps. And 2, 1. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, that was great. Push-ups. And let's go down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah! Killing it! Let's go! And now, speed skates, let's go! Speedsters. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last one.
That's great.
One more round. That was smoother.
That was good. I like it.
Adjust the mats. Start with the star squats in 5 seconds, guys. Just loosen it up. In 3, 2, 1. And star squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I did an extra one.
Overachiever. We love it. We love it. That's what we want from our squad here. All right, push-ups. And down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm gonna get that before the week's
Great
over.
work. Woo!
Sorry. My pants keep slipping.
Speed skaters, 6 of them. Let's do this. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all she wrote. That's circuit number 2 in the books. Now we're finishing with abs. Grab some water, give yourself a 20-second break, and then we're gonna get after it.
Shake it out if you don't need
I'll
water.
explain it a little bit. But yeah, shake it out, get nice and loose. Had a tough day thus far.
Drink your water, guys. Are you drinking your water? Are you having the best time ever? I am.
I am too. We're absolutely crushing it over here.
Crushing it.
Better be sweaty.
I am.
This is great. So, here's the deal. We're gonna be doing 2 rounds. We're gonna be doing side plank raises. I know what you're thinking. Coach Cooper, what the heck are side plank raises?
Coach Cooper, what the heck are side plank raises?
Well, that's a great question. Let's try it out. Let's explain. So, we're gonna get on our side here. I'm gonna show it at this angle. We're gonna have our hands on our hips. And we're gonna raise up for 5 reps. So we're gonna do 5 of these, and then we're gonna switch it on the other side and do 5 more. Working on the core, guys, right here, all in our abs. And then we're gonna jump in to our...
And why are abs important for kids and adults?
That is a great question. Your core is the fundamental part of your body that you want to keep strengthened in all movements, every sport. You think of baseball, soccer, basketball, having a tight core, strong core is the foundation for preventing injuries and getting hurt. And for one thing that I know, like, you want to have a strong core in daily life too, because it's going to help with your back and back pain.
Yeah.
So,
Back and back pain.
yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, so fun fact, guys, core is important for you.
Yep.
Core exercises, that is.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach Bruner. Coach
So,
Cooper.
we did side planks. We're gonna do normal crunches. That just looks like this. Gonna have our feet up.
Oh, we're doing all abs.
All
Oh
abs.
my. Grab your parents. They should do this exercise with us.
Mom, Dad, you better get off the couch and join them.
Get off that Zoom call, guys. Get over here and
Join
get
our
some
Fab Labs here as well.
Abs, Fab Labs.
Fab's Labs.
Fab Ab Labs. Fabulous laboratory abdominals. Doesn't rhyme, but it's fine.
That's exactly what
Shake it down.
That's exactly what we're calling
Shake it
it.
down.
Yeah, so we're gonna do crunches as well. Like I was showing, feet up, doing 10 of these.
So it's crunches first. Okay. It's not crunches.
And then, no, it's side plank, crunches,
Okay.
and then we're gonna do toe taps.
Okay.
All toe taps are is put your feet out like normal sit-up position, and you're just tapping your heels, going around like this, keeping your core tight.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool.
So we're doing 2 rounds, and we'll start in about 5 seconds.
Cool. Awesome. The first thing is what?
Side planks.
Side planks. That's right. Okay.
I don't know, should we do it like this, or should we face forward?
I might face this way just so we can make sure we're not. Actually, it doesn't matter. We're just
Like
this way.
this.
This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Side planks. 5 on each side. In 3.
Wait, we gotta make sure we're socially distanced. Are we socially distanced? Give me your hands. Let me see. Can you touch me? Okay, we're good.
We're good. We're good. I was like, uh-oh. All right, let's do this. We're doing 5. Ready, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, I really feel that working my abs.
We're switching it. Going to the other side. 5 of them. Ready, and up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Jumping straight to crunches. How does that
Oh,
feel?
crunches. I mean, my whatever this is definitely tingling. Let me know
The
it's there.
obliques on the sides.
Obliques.
Because we're hitting the front of our core, we're hitting the obliques.
Okay.
10 total reps here, guys. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We did it! Woo! Toe taps to finish up this first circuit. You know the deal.
Remember the toe taps? What? Oh, that's right.
So toe tap right here.
Okay.
We're gonna start in 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that is circuit number 1 complete.
Yes.
Great job,
That's
guys.
the most ab work I've done
In ages.
in my whole adult life.
It's tough, guys. Definitely get some water right now. We're gonna finish up with 1 more round, and then stretch out a little bit, and then we're gonna be done. That'll be our active hour. So give yourself a few more seconds
Get
here.
some water, chillax for a sec, but then
Have
get
some
to
water.
it.
Yeah.
We're gonna do 2. We're gonna do 2 more, 1 more. So just 2 for the abs and 3 for everything else.
Yeah.
Cool.
2 rounds.
Cool. I can.
Abs, and then wiggle it out, and then we're calling it good.
Awesome. Good. Okay.
All right, we'll start here in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Side plank raises, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're doing 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Awesome.
Woo! Switch it, Ruby. And up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Awesome.
What's next?
I think it's crunches.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. Doing 10 crunches, guys. In 3, 2, 1. Up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Whew. Core is dying.
My core feels great. My core feels like this is what's been missing in its life. Like,
Much
thank you for
needed.
feeling.
All right, let's finish with these toe taps.
Oh,
Let's
toe
wiggle it out, and we'll be good to go. 10 of them. Ready? And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Awesome.
Whew! Great job, guys. Let's clap it up.
Now for a quick cool down, guys, we're just gonna wiggle it out.
Let's wiggle it out. Get everything loose. Work your neck, work your chest, get everything. Noodle arms. Let's go.
Awesome.
shake and bake. Move it around.
Well, let's clap it up for fitness coach Cooper Bruner, cooperbrunner.com. Thank you so much, Coach Bruner.
Yeah, check out my website, check out my Instagram for home videos at cbruner37.
We'll have all that down below, so make sure you check out fitness coach Cooper Bruner. In the meantime, go wash your hands when you're finished wiggling it out, and meet me in the Fab Lab kitchen for the Fab Lab lunchbox. What are we gonna do today?
Count.
Woo!
What's up, guys? You guys are wondering, what do we have in my hands? Well, if you don't know what it is, it's a butter. We're making butter, and we did it out of
Heavy cream.
heavy cream and salt, and all you just need to shake it up for like 2 minutes, and the 2 minutes feel like forever. So I like to start up very slow, but then go fast. And so you can use it for bread, a lot of other things that butter you can use, and you can let it sit, right? You have to let it sit for a couple minutes, and it will be really good. And let's see if it's good enough. Let's see. Sorry about that. I need help opening it, but I'm gonna taste it, and let's see what it tastes like. It's a little soft. It's good, but I feel like it's a little bit more shaking. And we have to stay at home because of the coronavirus. But we can still do science crab. And besides, this is a science craft as well. Because I like science and you like science, because this is a science project that my mom's friend, she used to be from high school, and the friends, and she a lot of channels, and I think that this is the first one that did it with copied her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, so we are shaking up, right? I don't know if you guys can see, but can you guys see that clump? See? See that big fat thing? Guess what? That's the butter, and I can't wait to try it.
What you gotta do now?
I love bread. And then we're gonna open it up with like this. Open it up, yay. And this is what it looks like. See, look at that. That's the butter that's inside. Look at that. It's the big fat clump. It will be really good. And let's see if it's good enough. Let's see. Sorry about that. I need help opening it, but I'm gonna taste it, and let's see what it tastes like. It's a little soft. It's good, but I feel like it's a little bit more shaking. And we have to stay at home because of the coronavirus. But you can still do science crab. And besides, this is a science craft as well. Because I like science and you like science, because this is a science project that my mom's friend, she used to be from high school, and the friends, and she a lot of channels, and I think that this is the first one that did it with copied her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, so we are shaking up, right? I don't know if you guys can see, but can you guys see that clump? See? See that big fat thing? Guess what? That's the butter, and I can't wait to try it.
What you gotta do now?
I love bread. And then we're gonna open it up with like this. Open it up, yay. And this is what it looks like. See, look at that. That's the butter that's inside. Look at that. It's the big fat clump of butter, and then I'm gonna taste it. It's a little hard to get out.
Oh, it's so much.
It's good, but I think we need to drain the water. Guys, so this is the butter. And maybe 3 batches. This is the bottom and bottom one is the first. This one's the second, And that one that's about to be over there, well, probably pretty sure will be the third. Guys, so this is the butter. And maybe like 3 batches. This is so the bottom and bottom one is the first. This one's the second. And that one that's about to be over there, well, probably pretty sure.
Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to Coach Coop for that awesome active hour. I'm here in the Fab Lab kitchen in the lunchbox making my lunch. I am so excited about today's awesome recipe. Not only is it delightfully healthy, but it's beautiful and it's gonna taste amazing. Today's today's recipe is Fab Lab green tacos. Who says that all tacos have to have meat to be delicious? I certainly don't. So I'm gonna hop over to the Fab Lab skillet where I have a little bit brown. I put in the last little bit of Fab Lab rosemary butter that we made at the top of the week. And if you remember, Mariah brought us through the last couple of minutes where she was doing her version of the Fab Lab butter recipe. It was so much fun. Thank you to Mariah. Shout out to Mariah and Mariah. So in here I have just a few shavings of sweet potatoes that are being sauteed with a little bit of garlic and rosemary butter that we made at the top of this week in the Fab Lab for our emulsion project. And this looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to put this back in a little bit of a bowl because I'm going to do my kale next. Kale is the next thing that is coming up in this pan with our little bit of butter and garlic. We transferred our first saute of delicious sweet potato. And now I'm just gonna wilt this in the pan. To help it along, I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Excuse me. I'm just gonna get a little bit of agua in my pan because all I wanna do is wilt my delicious kale. Listen to that amazing sound. All right, while that's wilting, here I am, and all I'm gonna do is prep my avocado. So this was washed, and of course, it's gonna be delicioso. Practicing those great kitchen skills, making sure that we're not cutting ourselves. I'm gonna open it up, and I'm gonna just do a few thin slices. This one's a little bit ripe, so I'm gonna cut this little part off. I might use this for a hair mask later. Yes, Crazy Aunt Lindsay uses things like avocado to make hair conditioner, and so that little piece will be perfect for that endeavor. All right, so I'm going to do about 1-inch thick slices of my avocado that I'm just going to have ready for when my kale comes off and it looks like it's just about ready. The next thing I'm going to do is juice. I'm going to juice a little bit of a lime by taking it and rolling it on my cutting board. This is going to help to break up all the cells that are inside and let some of that water and juice get into the right places so that when I cut it, it'll be a great squeeze. All right, so all I did was just prep my avocado. I'm going to save that bit for hair conditioner, and my lime. Perfect. And then while that's finishing up, I'm going to quickly turn this off because that looks so great. I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir. And you know what? I think if I have a bowl handy or a small plate, I will put this here. So I'm going to move my kale. And while I do this, I'm going to warm a few corn tortillas. This is a great lunch for vegetarian kids. If you're vegan, this is great for you. Instead of butter, you can just use a little bit of oil to do your kale and your sweet potatoes. This is so perfect. Alrighty, so I've got another small skillet that's already ready. I sprayed it with a little bit of oil spray, and I'm just going to warm my tortillas over the pan one at a time. I'm gonna bring my toppings over. And here is my crema. So crema is a wonderful Mexican sour cream. You can get it in the dairy aisle or in the international aisles of just about any grocery store. It's a little thinner than classic crema. If you can't find crema, all you need is a regular old sour cream and a little bit of half and half or heavy cream, and you just mix it. And you would probably do, like a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 portion. So you do about 3 tablespoons of sour cream and about 1 tablespoon of half and half to the consistency of your liking. But this looks absolutely fantastic. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is, perfect. That looks so good. I don't love when my tortillas get super brown, so I'm gonna, oh, do you see the steam coming off of that? I'm gonna try and get it into the camera. Do you see the awesome steam coming off of this beautiful taco? It's absolutely gorgeous. So all I'm gonna do is grab a plate and I'm gonna build my taco. So to start, I'm gonna put my gorgeous, delicious, just a few chips of sweet potato. If you have a grater, you can grate it. You can even just dice your sweet potato. I had a little bit of extra from the other night, and I could have used that. It was just cubed and roasted. Sweet potatoes would go fantastic on this. And then next, I'm just gonna take my flavored kale and put that right on top. Beautiful, awesome. And then a little bit of avocado. For that, I'm gonna grab a butter knife just to help it come out a little bit easier. Oh, cute, just adorable. This is beautiful. Look at how gorgeous. If I wanted to, I could add salt and pepper, but I think that there's enough salt and pepper from the Fab Lab butter that I was using. There's plenty of it. And then I'm just gonna top this off with a little bit of my homemade crema. Just a drizzle. Again, if you're vegan, no need to do this. They also make delicious vegan sour creams out of things like cashew nut, soaked cashew nuts. It's absolutely delicious. Take a look at this. How yummy. I'm going to finish, and of course, a little bit of green salsa, which is also optional, but not for me. I spilled a little bit of it. That's okay. So I'm gonna hit this with just a little drizzle of green. Okay, this absolutely takes it over the edge. That's gorgeous, delicious, awesome. This looks so yummy. I can't wait to enjoy my lunch. I'm going to get back over to the skillet and I'm gonna finish up my lunch. And coming up next, we have the best community class coming up, where we're going to stay right here in the kitchen and learn some nice skills with my friend, Mr. Jacobson Valentine of feedthemass.org, Portland's only nonprofit cooking school that makes cooking and healthy food accessible to everyone. So stick around and do nice skills with me and Jacobson Valentine up next in community class. everybody. Welcome back to the afternoon session of the Fab Lab Digital Daycare. Today is so special. I know that I say that a lot, but today is extra special. Why? Oh, because we're doing kitchen and knife skills today. Yes, we are. I am so excited. Before I bring out our very special guest, what am I going to do? I'm going to wash my hands. You can go over with me to the Fab Lab sink where I'm going to quickly spend a solid 20 seconds soaping and watering my hands, turning water off because we always want to be doing what? Conserving. I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to get my palms really good because today is not just any ordinary community class. We have a very special guest coming in who's going to teach us how to do all kinds of things that we've been clamoring to learn here in the Fab Lab kitchen. I cannot wait to introduce you to my very special friend who came all the way from downtown Portland to bring you the very best of kitchen everything. I can't wait. Okay, so like I said, I'm rubbing my palms together. I'm getting the back of my hands. I'm getting in between my fingers and the knuckles. And I'm making sure the cuticles and fingertips are all done. And of course, hitting those wrists for the last 3 seconds of my hand washing. Now I'm gonna rinse. Super good. Nice. And I think that's all good. I think I'm all set. Okay, I'm gonna dry my hands really fast. And I'm feeling a little naked. What do I need? That's right! I need the Fab Lab apron. Shout out to Danielle Lee, amazing scientist who made this for me all by herself. Yes, with her hands. For me, for the Fab Lab, and I'm so excited to finally get to wear it. So I'm gonna put on my Fab Lab apron, and while I do this, I'm gonna introduce you to my very special friend. Yes, Jacobson Valentine of Feed the Mass Nonprofit Cooking School. Hi, Jacob.
Hey guys.
What are we gonna do?
So today we're going to learn about knife skills, how the knives work, and exactly how to use them. So the first thing, of course, is we got to wash our hands.
We're gonna wash our hands first. Now, while he washes his hands, I'm just gonna ask him a few really quick questions. Jacob, how long have you been cooking?
I've been cooking for almost 12 years now. My entire family cooks. My mom cooked at home. My grandma was a chef at age, I think 45, she started becoming a chef, which is really awesome. And yeah, I love cooking. I've been teaching for about 4 years now.
Okay.
So,
Cooking, teaching cooking with Feed the Mass?
yes.
Awesome. So tell me about Feed the Mass.
So Feed the Mass is a nonprofit cooking school. We've been around since 2016. We do cooking classes for the community. We do weekend classes for kids, and we do adult classes in the evenings throughout the week.
Awesome. I have been to his classes. I've been to the kids' classes especially. They're a lot of fun. I think the one that I came to, we were actually making sandwiches for our houseless neighbors in the different parks in the neighborhood. It was so fun. The kids have an absolute blast, and I highly recommend Feed the Mass. Now, before we get started, we washed our hands, but we also have to talk about what? Social distancing, or distancia social. So Mr. Jacob and I are going to do our best to maintain at least 6 feet distance. He's a super tall guy. So I think we'll be able to make it work. His arms are extra long. But as long as we're kind of, we're 6 feet away from each other, I think we'll be okay. And of course, if we sneeze or cough into our hands, we will do what?
Wash them.
Yes, we will. We will wash our hands. Okay, I'm super excited for this class. Take it away.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, the knives. Now, a lot of parents, there's 3 different knives that you should have in your house. The first one, of course, is going to be a paring knife. A paring knife is super important because it's nice and small, and this is something that you can easily let a 3-year-old use.
A 3-year-old using a paring knife?
3-year-old using a paring knife. Now, the most important thing is, of course, understanding that you have to be okay with teaching them things slowly. Understanding that, yes, it is dangerous, but it's also a tool. And just like anything else, you can definitely cut yourself on a screwdriver, but it's very unlikely. So this, you gotta think of it like a screwdriver. It's a tool. It has to be used properly.
Knives are tools.
Exactly.
I love it.
So next one is a utility knife. Now these are pretty awesome. They're a little bit longer than a paring knife, but they're also good for kids that are ages 5 to 8. This is usually like the intermediate knife. And then anyone over 8 years old can use a chef knife. But again, it's just like anything else. Learn how to use it first and then graduate up and up and up.
Okay, I don't think I was probably 12 years old before I was able to touch anything that was not a butter knife. So the fact that we're saying 3-year-olds for pairings, preparing knives, 5-year-olds for utility knives, and then anything over 8 for a chef knife, I'm like, my mom and my parents totally gypped me. I could have been in that kitchen chefing it up much earlier.
Well, a lot of it is just confidence and also just understanding take your time. So everything I do here is going to be taking our time, and it's very easy.
Great.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is the parts of the knife. So today,
Is this a chef's knife?
so there's 2 different types of chef's knives. So this is a regular French chef knife where you see the blade goes straight out, and that's more of a Santuko style where the blade comes in. So that's more Japanese, Asian style, and this is more French, American, English style.
Shout out to Sora from Shoda. We have lots of Japanese friends here in Fab Lab.
All right, so let's talk about the parts of a knife. So today I'm going to be using the chef knife. So we have the blade itself, and there's the cutting edge and the spine. Now it's super important you identify which one is which because you don't want to cut yourself on the sharp side.
True that.
Then we have the bolster, which is the point where the handle and the blade come together. And then we have our handle, which this is a full tane handle, meaning the blade goes all the way through the handle, giving it nice and balance. Now this is a pretty much just more of a low grade, $40 knife. You don't have to go too super expensive, especially if it's for your first knife. A lot of kids, you can go to any Solo Top and you can find a pair knife for like $10. Just pick that up and that'll be their first knife, and they have to take care of it, so super important.
Okay.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is how to hold a knife. Now, the way I tell everybody to think about a knife is kind of like a pen. You don't want to have to squeeze it too hard because it's not alive. It's not slippery.
Wait, hold it like this?
So actually, close, so close. So the same way you actually would hold a pen, kind of like this, you're actually going to pinch it right by the top.
Oh.
Yep, right by the bolster. And then with the rest of your fingers, just hold on gently, and you're going to have a lot more control when you pinch it.
Okay, this is already innovating how I've been holding my knives. If you've been watching the past 2 weeks, you know I'm a handle-only girl.
So this is super important because we want this to be kind of in the balance point of your knife.
Okay.
So if you hold it like this, you'll notice your top is very wavy.
Word.
That's not really safe. And if you hold it too close, you're going to be accidentally having your fingers by the blade. You don't want that either. So if you had it right in the middle, and you notice there's no wiggle on the top, there's no wiggle on the bottom, it's nice and even. That's a really good sign that your knife is balanced. So the first thing we're also going to learn is the chopping and slicing. So a lot of people see on TV, they have this chopping, very annoying sound first off. But
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So that is actually a way for you to dull your knife. Now, in order to think about your edge of your knife, you got to think of it kind of like a saw. You know how saws work?
Yes.
Okay, so
The kind that you go, ooh,
yeah, exactly. And then you know what an axe is like. Chopping, exactly. So a knife is kind of like.
What is a saw like? And what is an axe like? Exactly.
All right. So we gotta think of our knife like. We gotta think of a knife like a saw. So all the little edges of a knife, if you look at a microscope, it actually looks kind of like a saw blade. There's these things called little spurs. Now these spurs, when you go down like an axe and you chop it, it bends those little spurs. That means your knife is dulling, and that's not good. You want your knife to be nice and sharp. So when you're sawing, you're letting all those little spurs work together to cut through anything. So that's super important. So whenever we're doing anything, keep this hand, we're gonna practice. Keep this hand in the back. You don't need this hand. We're gonna put the tip of the knife down, and we're gonna go from tip to butt. So meaning you're gonna go from tip to your butt when you're slicing. So tip to butt.
Okay.
So go from tip and move forward into your butt, just like you're
Go
sawing.
forward into the butt.
Forward to the butt, tip to the butt.
Oh.
Now, if you look at it sideways, it kind of looks like a choo-choo train. So kind of like chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it. Now, you can do this every knife. Chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it. And if you have even smaller hands, with mine aren't, chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it. All right. So going from tip to butt, super important. Cutting into the cutting board. Now the cutting board is super important because this cutting board is actually going to help you make sure your cut's all the way through, so you don't have pieces stuck to itself. So go into your cutting board. It's okay. The cutting board doesn't feel anything. I swear.
That's what it's there for. You're supposed to cut the board.
Cut the board. All right. So now we're going to talk about this hand. Now this hand is all about control. So you control everything. This hand is kind of the engine. So This is going to be your engine. This is going to be control. So we're going to grab a potato. Grab a potato.
Thank you.
There you go. All right. So this hand, we can put our knives down. Now, whenever we put our knives down, we always face the blade
away from us. That's a Fab Lab fact. We already knew that. We knew that. Blade away.
Blade away. All right. So we're going to think of our hand. I don't know if the kids might be too young for this, but there's a thing called Anne's family. There's the butler who's literally a severed hand that runs around. It's like the coolest little kid.
That's not cousin it. Cousin is the hairy
hair
one.
Thing.
That's
Thing's
right.
the one that goes around. So we got to think of our hands kind of like thing, where we're always on our fingertips. Always on our fingertips. Now, this is super important because you control everything on your fingertips. You don't control everything with your fingers. Because when you start controlling with your fingertips are in danger.
Exposed, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So we control everything with our fingertips. We protrude our knuckles out. And this is going to give us kind of a buffer so we don't cut our fingertips.
We talked about this in Fab Lab. We talked about this.
There you go. So we have our claw / the thing holding it down. All right, we have our knife. We can grab our knife now. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is learn to get this roly-poly-oly kind of situation to actually be more stable. So we're going to cut a little slab right off the bottom. So remember, fingertips.
Which way is the bottom? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just I go lengthwise. So if it's more long this way, go lengthwise.
Okay.
So we're going to do with our fingers. We're going to get our knife nice and straight. Now this is super important. We want our knife to be nice and straight. So if they can see up there, nice and straight. We don't want it too far this way. We don't want it too far that way. We want it to be nice and straight because if it's not straight, it won't cut straight. And our fingers are nice and safe. We measure by looking on this side. Make sure it's nice and straight. And we're going to cut a thin strip right off the bottom. This makes sure that it doesn't roll away. This can't roll now.
Can't get my potato.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to learn how to do some little basic cuts. So the first basic cut.
Basic cuts. Great.
The first one is going to be planks. So planks are really super.
Oh, like exercise? Like when I get on all fours and I go like this?
Yes, we're going to turn these into that.
Okay, cool.
All right. So
you already know that I've been working on my planks in the Fab Lab Active Hour. Just putting it out there.
So we're going to. One thing that's a really good tool is a metal, what is it called? Ruler. So if you have a metal ruler, put it onto your cutting board, especially if you're using kids, and you're going to measure. So we're going to go for about, I would say, 1/2 inch. So go with your eyes. Doesn't have to be perfect. 1/2 inch and cut a plank. We're going to do it again. 1/2 inch, cut a plank.
Is
now,
this 1/2 inch?
I would say that's more of a 1/4 inch. Go
It's
a little bit thicker, like double that size. You're looking for something
Like
more
this?
like this.
Oh, like that.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay,
You
do
got
it.
All right.
Ooh.
So one more time, nice and easy. And remember, keeping our fingers safe, taking our time. We don't have to rush this.
But what about on all the chef shows where like...
That takes literally 10 years of experience to be able to do this.
Okay.
I can do that.
And most of us aren't even 10 years old. So take your time.
Take your time. All right, so now we have our little planks. Lay them all out. Now we have our planks. Now these are good for like if you wanted to just boil these and then you can lay them down and make like potato gratin. That's really perfect.
Ooh, potato gratin. Ooh.
Love those.
That sounds so delicious.
Also, if you want to just boil these and then you can just fry them and you can have like little like fried potato rings.
Okay.
These are really good.
So yummy.
Now we're gonna take it down to a step. So now we're gonna make kind of like really thick julienne. So same kind of width.
Oh, thick julienne.
Yeah.
Julienne, everybody. We've been eating julienne carrots and julienne cucumbers all week long. This is how you do it.
There you go. So we're gonna do the same kind of width. You want to make them about the same. So about 1/2 inch and cut. Measure, cut. Now super important, we're always just taking our time and try to measure about the same. Now an easy way to do that is while you're cutting.
This is a julienne?
Yeah, it's a really thick julienne.
Oh, it's a thick julienne.
Thick julienne.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, so this, then we're gonna, now if you want to make sure you're doing the same, you can grab one, make sure it's about the same, measure, and then come down. Grab another one, so you make sure that every single one's exactly the same. Especially if we're talking about consistency. Consistency is king in a kitchen because you want them all to cook the same rate. All right, so now you have your thick juliennes of potatoes. Now we're going to turn these into dices. So again, what we're going to do is straighten these all out. The first one is kind of like a sacrificial one. You sacrifice this, this can go into your mashed potatoes, or you can cook them up either way. But we want a flat, squared off surface.
Oh, okay. So hold on a minute.
Yeah, just straighten out.
Oh, actually, wait. Let me get to 2.
That's fine.
Okay.
All right.
So
Sacrifice.
sacrificial potatoes.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to, same thing, grab your little julienne one, so we make sure it's the same size, and then we're gonna make little dices. And then we can move it over.
I'm dicing!
There you go. Now, if you're super particular, like if you're in a chef restaurant or something like this,
OMG.
then
I'm
that's
sorry.
super important.
I just have to, I'm sorry.
They don't look the same.
I've never diced before. I usually just chop and throw it in.
There you go. So
This is diced. And this
there
is
you go.
beautiful. You're
Perfect.
welcome.
So once they are diced, put them in some water, because the last thing you want is your potatoes to oxidize, because then they'll turn brown. So water's a way to prevent that
We
oxidation.
know all about oxidation here in the Fab Lab.
Perfect. All right, so next one, we're gonna do a little bit more skills now. So we're gonna take our rest of potatoes, throw them in the water. We'll come back to those later. Grab
Okay.
the rest of your potatoes, throw them in there.
All of them?
Grab, yep, all of them. Because we don't want them
Even
to go
these,
brown.
even these like scraps?
We don't want them to go brown. We're gonna use them for mashed potatoes later.
Ooh.
I know, right? All right, so grab your next potato.
Okay.
So now we're going to go half the size. So again, what's the first thing we do? Remember, Lindsay?
The first thing we're gonna do is do our hands.
Yep.
We're gonna do our claw, and then we're going to slice off about a half of an inch so that we have a nice stable surface.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, there you go. All right, so now it's a stable surface. We're gonna go about 1/8 of an inch. So we want this to be nice and thin. So easy way to do that, again, take your time, measure, get as thin as you want, and cut. Now we're gonna see how thin I can make it, but we're gonna go aim for about 1/8 of an inch.
I think I'm doing an eighth. Is that about an eighth?
That's about 1/8, yeah, you're good. I'm gonna go thinner because I'm gonna show the importance of taking your time, measuring. You notice that, like, I'm really close to my fingers. Eventually, the more secure you get with your knife, the closer you are with your fingers.
And I'm super far away with my fingers.
It's okay. It's all right. Now, if you have, like, nails, like, I know that some moms like to give, like, little press-on nails to their kids. It's going to be super hard for them. I mean, that's the blatant truth. So just know that. You can always pop them off and then put them back on later. But when it comes to knife skills, you want to kind of have short nails. It does make it easier. So
The fabulous length, as I like to call it.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
if you can see in the overhead, but the Fab Lab length.
So I went a little bit thinner. So
Oh, yeah.
you can go as
You
thin
went-
as you want.
You went thinner than I did.
It's
You
all
said
good.
1/4 of an inch. I was full of fear. I
It's all
just
good.
did my best.
You're good. So now we're going to turn these into, I would say, shoestring fries. So, I know, shoestring fries are the bomb. So from there, again, we lay them all down, in all the planks all together, and we go as thin as we can. The thinner, the better. Just taking our time, going through. Now, most important thing, always pay attention to what you're doing. Don't take your eyes off of your knife.
Stop not
It's
looking.
super hard.
Stop not
You can hurt
looking.
yourself. Just don't do that. All right. So we got all of our potato strings done, nice and happy. I'm gonna fill this up with water real quick. All right.
Oh, that.
There you go.
I'm so proud of
Perfect.
you.
And then we're gonna throw these into the water.
Oh, yours are so much thinner than mine. So much thinner. These aren't even. No, I have to chop these again.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. It's not a big deal.
All right.
All right. So we have all of our shoestring fries, and there you go.
We have our shoestring and our big giant fat laces.
There you go. It's all good. All right. So that's pretty much it. I would say when it comes to other vegetables, it's the most important thing is make it into sizes that are more handleable. So one of the big things is, like, I have giant hands, but you have a little bit smaller hands. So if you notice that your product is bigger than your hands, make it about the size of your width of your hands. Now, on top of that, it's super important that whenever we're going to harder vegetables, have a parent involved, because you should never be using a knife without a parent. Super important.
Parental supervision.
There you go. But it's also a situation of just take your time. New things, always you want to do new things with your parents. And then once you get comfortable, then go to town. But never be afraid of your knife. Never.
This is awesome.
Now, do you know what to do when you accidentally cut yourself? Because that's going to happen.
It's definitely gonna happen.
It's definitely going to happen. One time in your life, you will cut yourself.
Definitely gonna cut myself. I'm out of here.
I think you should. It's okay. But in case you accidentally cut yourself, first thing you do is grab onto whatever you cut. It's okay. Don't cry. Don't freak out. Just stay calm. Grab onto wherever you cut. You come to the sink. We turn on the water. Wash any excess blood off your hands. Get a little bit of soap. We're going to wash it. Now at this point, if you're not already crying, it's okay to cry. Not a big deal. I cried the first time. And then you're going to get your parent to come in. We're going to get a clean rag, and we're going to put pressure onto it. We're going to stop the bleeding. Super important. Pressure stops the bleeding. Then, of course, you get yourself what?
You get yourself. Oh, I'm
just kidding.
I was.
A tourniquet, no. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. You get yourself a Band-Aid, and then you put it on, and then if you are cooking for other people, get a glove on. A glove is going to be super important.
If you cut yourself, grab a glove.
Grab a glove.
If you need to finish cooking, but if you don't need to finish cooking,
then go eat some ice cream and be happy. Ice cream, you're happy.
Oh my gosh. So thank you so much to Chef Jacobson Valentine for popping into the Fab Lab to teach us some core knife and kitchen safety skills. I am so excited. Please be practicing. If you do, make sure you have your parents take a video of you or a photograph and then tag the Fab Lab HQ. As always, please make sure that you signed up for the Fab Lab nightly newsletter at thefablab.com, where we will be sending you all kinds of things in relationship to today's demonstration and more about feedthemass.org, the Portland's only nonprofit cooking school, which is so super awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, next up, we're going to have coloring and fun here in the Fab Lab. What will we do today? Well, hello, and welcome back to the Fab Lab Digital Daycare. I'm Crazy Aunt Lindsay, and we are here in the Fab Lab kitchen, just shifting gears a little bit. If you've been watching the show for the past couple of weeks, then you know exactly what time it is. It is time for coloring and fun. I am so stoked for everything that we've done today. I'm just putting on a little bit of moisturizer because I just washed my hands for the 100th time today, and my hands are super dry. I'm super excited for today's show. We did some really fun stuff in the morning. We hung out with my friend Scott Hanselman. We coded a game. I can't wait to see all of your games that you're going to code. If you did not catch this morning's episode, then make sure when the live stream replay goes up on YouTube that you hop back and check out that awesome session that we did with Scott. Thank you so much to Scott. Then we made a delicious, delicious green taco that was absolutely delicious. We even made it bonus with some extra Fab Lab butter that we had made last week. And then we did an amazing workout with Coach Cooper, a Fab Lab favorite fitness coach, thanks to Coach Coop. And then we had an incredible knife skills class with my longtime friend, Jacobson Valentine of feedthemass.org, Portland's only nonprofit cooking school, making healthy food accessible to everyone. So now we're just going to start to wind down a little bit. Of course, if you have a puzzle, a coloring book, a journal, if you have any of those fun things on hand, bring them on out. And I want you to come and color with me. We're going to have a couple of our classic chat out loud questions popping up on the screen over the next 20 to 30 minutes or so as we just kind of wind down. I have pulled out my super duper STEM Women in STEM coloring book from Vox Siren, written by B Masters. Shout out to B. She is an incredible woman here in Portland, Oregon, over on the comedy and improv scene. She's such a fantastic player, and I am just totally obsessed. Oh, and of course illustrated by Cassandra Swan and Allison Berg. I am totally obsessed with this coloring book, not only because it's got tons of women in STEM that we can color, but also it even goes so far as to offer us some profiles of these awesome, prolific women in STEM history. So I'm gonna go ahead and read one that's inspired a little bit by today. This person is not a gamer, but she is a computer programmer. Grace Hopper, I don't know if you can see this in the overhead without me having to do it upside down, but Grace Hopper, amazing lady. I'm gonna read her profile. So Grace Hopper was a computer technology pioneer and Navy admiral, best known for her contributions to computer programming languages. She is from the United States and she was born in 1906. and she passed away sadly in 1992, but I think she lived a really long, awesome life. Could she jump well? Her name was Grace Hopper, and she was born in New York City. Who knows, you know? What we do know is that Grace rose to the challenge of programming the first computers with level 10 Moxie. She donned the salt and peppers of the U.S. Navy during World War II and served on the Mark II computer programming staff. Visionaries like Grace embraced the idea that we've always done it that way. Visionaries like Grace embrace the idea that we've always done it that way is not necessarily a good reason to continue doing so. Hear, hear. She was known for never ever giving up on her good ideas, believing a much wider audience could use the computer if there were tools that were both programmer friendly and application friendly. Grace risked her career to join the Eckhart Multi-Computer Corporation to provide businesses with computers. She knew that the development and refinement of programming languages was the way to crack open and attract new groups to computing. So this is a very important lady. We have her to thank for our home computing. Grace felt computers could be understood and used by people who were neither mathematicians nor computer experts. After a few years of hard work, she proved it was in fact feasible. Her work led to the development of the popular COBOL language, C-O-B-O-L language. And oh yeah, she became a rear admiral at the age of 77. After 40 years in the computer biz, she felt her biggest contribution was all the young people I've trained. Shout out to Grace Hopper. So what we're gonna do right now is I'm gonna just get to color in this awesome page. I love, there's all these computers, an American flag. There's a little bit of a report here. There's so much to color. So I'm gonna color this, and I'm gonna ask you my very first chat out loud question of the day. What has been your favorite stay at home activity? I would love to know. It is so beautiful outside. Monday and Tuesday, we celebrated the dawn of spring, and it's gorgeous outside. Yesterday, it was 70 degrees. I think that we're right around the same place today. The sun is shining. Just because we are self-isolating together doesn't mean we can't go on walks outside, short distances, and get some fresh air. That has for sure been one of my favorite things to do, but I would love to know what your favorite things have been to do in the last few weeks that we've been hanging out at home together. So I'm going to get started. I'm trying to decide if I want to make, what color I want to make Grace's outfit. I could go the classic route and color it blue, but you know we don't always go the classic route. I think I'm going to give her a nice red-violet colored jacket. Coloring is one of my favorite things to do. Taking walks outside, especially now that the weather has changed and just looks so nice out. It's for sure been wonderful to get outside. One of my other favorite things to do, in addition to coloring, is calling and checking in on friends. I've made so many phone calls in the last few days, just checking in with friends to see how they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're cooking, what they're playing with, the things that they're thinking about. And so that's been one of my favorite things to do in these last few weeks, is just check in on friends and family. Today on Instagram, just this morning, I posted a great quote by former presidential candidate Kamala Harris. I was watching a rerun, which is another thing that I've been doing in my downtime, watching lots of reruns on Hulu. And I was watching the rerun from The View from, I think, sometime last week, maybe Friday or Monday's show. And she said this quote that just really hit me in my heart, that it's so much more important to hear the sound of laughter than it is to read LOL. And that just completely knocked my socks off. If you didn't catch that on Instagram this morning, maybe it's because you're not following me. So make sure you go and follow the Fab Lab HQ on Instagram, and you'll see that post that I made this morning. But yeah, it was just such a sweet thing to hear, and such a true thing. It's been so great to connect with my mom and my sisters really early in the morning. I live here in Portland, Oregon, and they all live on the East Coast. My sister and my niece, shout out to Mackenzie, lives in Florida. My mom is in my hometown and home state of New Jersey. Shout out to New Jersey. And no, I had someone ask if I was related to Governor Phil Murphy. Probably down the line somewhere, but no, I am not related to Governor Phil Murphy, but we do share a last name. So shout out to Phil, doing a great job in Jersey, taking care of the home state. But yeah, it's been so wonderful to check in with family. There are all those like little Facebook surveys that go around. My sister and I did one at 5 a.m. the other day, again, because I'm living on the West Coast and she's on the East Coast. And so we just did like a little getting to know you thing, and it turns out she knows me really well and I know her really well too. It was really fun to do that together, even if it was 5 a.m. my time. But just making time for friends and family. No one's rushed right now. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. It's just us. If you live alone, and if you live alone and you're not an extrovert, or, you're an introvert, you might be really enjoying the downtime. But for someone like me, I'm an extrovert, which means I get my energy from people. Introverts get their energy from being alone and downtime. Extroverts get their energy from other people. So for me, being an extrovert, it has been much harder because there's not a lot of people out. There aren't a lot of things to do. One of my favorite things is to, wander around in my neighborhood and connect with neighbors and friends. And, I'm not really a big shopper, but, taking a nice little wander around different stores, which is something that we're discouraging right now, only going to stores when necessary and then really learning what's necessary and what's not. So just kind of sticking around at home, chillaxing. It's been hard for some of us, but for others of us, who are introverted, this could be a pretty good time. So some of my favorite stay-at-home activities have been coloring, connecting with friends and family, getting on phone calls, finding ways to laugh and just really connect with friends and family, and even myself. These chat out loud questions, it's been great to get feedback from parents about kids actually sharing their chat out loud thought journals with their parents over dinner, which I absolutely love hearing about. And some of them can be a little bit deep, but I think now's a good time to get deep. I think that when you're busy and sort of the world is normal, it's a little bit tougher to have the time to go and really think about the tough questions and ask yourself the tough questions. But I think a time like now is a good time to do that. So it's been really awesome to hear parents connecting with their kids on a deeper level at this time. I absolutely love it. Awesome. I'm really digging how my Grace Hopper jacket is coming out. Oh snap! Oh, there's balloons. That must mean it's time for a new chat out loud question. Oh my gosh, I think I want to design and invent a balloon propeller if it's not already invented. Okay, my next chat out loud question. As I said, we just entered into springtime, and what's right around the corner? Yes, summertime. Summertime is just 2-3 months away, and I would love to know, what are 3 things? 1, 2, 3. Eat, earth, sun. That was 3. That was 1, 2, 3 in Mandarin. What would the 3 things that you would like to learn this summer? Let me think. What would I like to learn how to do? Honestly, I think I'm doing a lot of the things that I'd like to learn how to do. Working on this show, this 4-hour show with all of you, has me thinking about different projects in new ways. It's got me thinking of new recipes. It's got me thinking about different things that me and the team and the show need. So I think by summer, one of the things I'd like to learn by summer is how to connect with you guys more. Just more and better. this 4-hour experience has been so exhilarating and so interesting that yeah, I would love to meet more of you, get to know more of all of you out there who are watching the show, finding more people who would love the show. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'd like to learn how to do. What else? I think actually I said this last week, and I don't know that I want to wait until summer to do it, but certainly by summer, I'd really like to do a good push-up. A really good push-up. Let's practice right now. Let me see. I'm really not good at my push-ups. Actually, this is great, but I'm also standing. I'm mostly standing. I'd like to do that on the ground. I'd like to do some really good push-ups. What's another thing that I want to learn? I don't know. What would you like to learn? What would you like to learn in this season? This is so good. Awesome. I'm just coloring. If you guys are coloring along with me or working on a puzzle, or if you just so happen to be journaling, I would love to see your journal. I'd love to see what you've got going on. Let's see here. When I was a kid, this is how my sister used to color. She would use her crayon to outline whatever the thing was, and then she would shade in just lightly. And I'm retrying that. I'm experimenting right now because I don't know that I've done this method of coloring in a long time, but it makes things look a little bit cleaner. I think it does, at least. I can't. Maybe it does. This is so nice. Awesome. Alrighty, friends. We did a bit of coloring. We answered a couple of chat out loud questions. I think I want to go to story time. Last week, actually the first week and last week, we started with A Wrinkle in Time, one of my favorite childhood stories. And we're moving into, I think, chapter 4, where we're going to read the chapter on the black thing. So if you guys would like to hear this story, get comfy and meet me in the Fab Lab library in the next couple of seconds, and we'll read that together. Welcome to the Fab Lab Library. Now it's time for story time. Today we're going to pick up in chapter 4 of A Wrinkle in Time, one of my favorite girlhood books. I can't wait to get started. Chapter 4, The Black Thing. The trees were lashed into a violent frenzy. Meg screamed and clutched at Calvin, and Mrs. Witch's authoritative voice called out, "Quiet, child!" Did a shadow fall across the moon, or did the moon simply go out, extinguished as abruptly and completely as a candle? There was still the sounds of leaves, a terrified, terrifying rushing. All light was gone. Darkness was complete. Suddenly, the wind was gone, and all sound. Meg felt that Calvin was being torn from her. When she reached for him, her fingers touched nothing. She screamed out, "Charles!" And whether it was to help him or for him to help her, she did not quite know. The word was flung back on her throat, and she choked on it. She was completely alone. She had lost the protection of Calvin's hand. Charles was nowhere, either to save or to turn to. She was alone in a fragment of nothingness. No light, no sound, no feeling. Where was her body? She tried to move in a panic, but there was nothing to move. Just as light and sound had vanished, she had gone too. The corporal Meg simply was not. Then she felt her limbs again. Her legs and arms were tingling faintly, as though they had been asleep. She blinked her eyes rapidly, but though she herself was somehow back, nothing else was. It was not as simple as darkness or absence of light. Darkness has a tangible quality. It can be moved through and felt. In darkness, you can bark your shins. The world of things still exists around you. She was lost in a horrifying void. It was the same way with the silence. This was more than silence. A deaf person could feel vibrations. Here, there was nothing to feel. Suddenly, she was aware of her heart beating rapidly within the cage of her ribs. How had it stopped before? What had made it start again? The tingling in her arms and legs grew stronger, and suddenly felt movement. This movement, she felt, must be the turning of the earth, rotating on its axis, traveling its elliptic course about the sun. And this feeling of moving with the earth was somewhat like the feeling of being in the ocean, out in the ocean beyond the rising and falling of the breakers, lying on the moving water, pulsing gently with the swells, and feeling the gentle, inexorable tug of the moon. I am asleep. I am dreaming, she thought. I'm having a nightmare. I want to wake up. Let me wake up. Well, Charles Wallace's voice said, that was quite a trip. I do think you might have warned us. Light began to pulse and quiver. Meg blinked and shoved shakily at her glasses, and there was Charles Wallace, standing indignantly in front of her, his hands on his hips. "Meg!" he shouted. "Calvin, where are you?" She saw Charles. She heard him, but she could not go to him. She could not shove through the strange, trembling light to meet him. Calvin's voice came as though it were pushing through a cloud. "Well, just give me a minute, will ya? I'm older than you are." Meg gasped. It wasn't that Calvin wasn't there and then he was. It wasn't that part of him came first and then the rest of him followed, like a hand and then an arm, an eye and then a nose. It was sort of a shimmering, looking at Calvin through water or smoke, through fire, and then there he was, solid and reassuring. "Meg!" Charles Wallace's came again. "Meg! Calvin, where's Meg?" I'm right here, she tried to say, but her voice seemed to be caught at its source. Meg, Calvin cried, and he turned around, looking about wildly. Mrs. Witch, you haven't left Meg behind, have you? Charles Wallace shouted. If you're hurt, Meg, any of you, Calvin started, but suddenly Meg felt a violent push and a shuddering as though she had been burst through the wall of glass. Oh, there you are, Charles Wallace said, and rushed over to her and hugged her. But where am I? Meg asked breathlessly, relieved to hear that her voice was now coming out of her in more or less a normal way. She looked around rather wildly. They were standing in a sunlit filled field, and the air about them was moving with the delicious fragrance that comes only on the rarest of spring days when the sun's touch is gentle and the apple blossoms are just beginning to unfold. She pushed her glasses up her nose to reassure herself that what she was seeing was real. They had left the silver glint of a biting autumn evening, and now around them everything was golden with light. The grasses of the field were tender, new, and green, and scattered about were tiny, multicolored flowers. Meg turned slowly to face a mountain reaching so high into the sky that its peak was lost in a crown of white, puffy clouds. From the trees at the base of the mountain came a sudden singing of birds. There was an air of such ineffable peace and joy all about her that her heart's wild thumping slowed. When shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or rain? Came Mrs. Who's voice. Suddenly, the three of them were there. Mrs. Whatsit with her pink stole askew, Mrs. Who with her spectacles gleaming, and Mrs. Witch, still little more than a shimmer. Delicate, multicolored butterflies were fluttering about them as though in greeting. Mrs. Whatsit and Mrs. Who began to giggle, and they giggled until it seemed that, whatever their private joke was, they would fall down with a wild fun of it. The shimmer seemed to be laughing too. It became vaguely darker and more solid, and then there appeared a figure in a black robe and a black peaked hat, beady eyes and a beaked nose and long gray hair. One bony claw clutched a broomstick. Well, just to keep you girls happy, the strange voice said, and Mrs. Whatsit and Mrs. Who fell into each other's arms with gales of laughter. If you ladies have had your fun, I think you should tell Calvin and Meg a little more about all this, Charles Wallace said coldly. You scared Meg half out of her wits, whisking her off in this way without warnings. Fixrimi amui, Roma et pecura locus, Mrs. Who intoned. Horace, to action little, less to words inclined. Mrs. Who, I wish you'd stop quoting, Charles Wallace said, very annoyed. Mrs. Whatsit adjusted her stole. But she finds it so difficult to verbalize, Charles, dear. It helps her if she can quote instead of working out the words on her own. And we mustn't lose our senses of humor, Mrs. Witch said. The only way to cope with something deadly serious is to try and treat it a little lightly. But that's going to be hard for Meg, Mrs. Whatsit said. It's going to be hard for her to realize that we are serious. What about me, Calvin asked. The life of your father isn't at stake, Mrs. Whatsit told him. But what about Charles Wallace then? Mrs. Whatsit's unoiled door hinge voice was warm with affection and pride. Charles Wallace knows that it's far more than just the life of his father. Charles Wallace knows what's at stake. But remember, Mrs. Who said, Euripides, nothing is hopeless. We mustn't hope for everything. Where are we now, and how did we get here? Calvin asked. Uriel, the third planet of the star Malik in the spiral nebula Messier 101. This I'm supposed to believe, Calvin asked indignantly. As you like, Mrs. Witch said coldly. For some reason, Meg felt that Mrs. Witch, despite her looks and ephemeral broomstick, was someone in whom one could put complete trust. It doesn't seem any more peculiar than anything else that's happened. Well then, someone just tell me how we got here. Calvin's voice was still angry and his freckles seemed to stand out on his face. Even traveling at the speed of light, it would take us years and years to get here. Oh, we didn't travel at the speed of anything, Mrs. Whatsit explained earnestly. We tesser. Or you might say, we wrinkle. Clear as mud, Calvin said. Tesser, Meg thought. Could that have anything to do with Mother's tesseract? She was about to ask when Mrs. Witch started to speak, and one did not interrupt when Mrs. Witch was speaking. Mrs. Whatsit is young and naive. She keeps thinking she can explain things in words, Mrs. Who said. You know, the more a man knows, the less he talks. But she has to use words for Meg and for Calvin, Charles reminded Mrs. Who. If you brought them along, then you have the right to know what's going on. Meg went up to Mrs. Witch. In the intensity of her question, she had forgotten all about the tesseract. Is my father here? Mrs. Witch shook her head. Not here, Meg. Let Mrs. Whatsit explain. She is young, and the language of her words is easier for her than it is for Mrs. Who and me. We stopped here, Mrs. Whatsit explained, more or less to catch our breaths, and to give you a chance to know what you're up against. But what about Father? Meg asked. Is he all right? For the moment, yes, love. He's one of the reasons we're here. But you see, he's only one. Well, where is he? Please take me to him. I can't, not yet, Charles said. You have to be patient, Meg. But I'm not patient, Meg cried passionately. I've never been patient. Mrs. Who's glasses shone at her gently. If you want me to help your father, then you must learn patience. To stake one's life for the truth. That's what we must do. That is what your father is doing, Mrs. Whatsit nodded. Her voice like Mrs. Who's, very serious, very solemn. Then she smiled her radiant smile. Now, why don't you three children wander around, Charles can explain things a little bit more. You're perfectly safe on Uriel. That's why we stopped here to rest. But aren't you coming with us? Meg asked fearfully. There was a silence for a moment. Then Mrs. Witch raised her authoritative hand. Show them, she said to Mrs. Whatsit. And at something in her voice, Meg felt prickles of apprehension. Now? Mrs. Whatsit asked, her creaky voice rising to a squeak. Whatever it was Mrs. Witch wanted them to see, it was something that made Mrs. Whatsit uncomfortable too. Now, Mrs. Witch said, they may as well know. Should I change? Mrs. Whatsit asked. Better. I hope it won't upset the children too much, Mrs. Whatsit murmured, as though to herself. Should I change too? Mrs. Who asked. Oh, but I have had so much fun in these clothes. But I'll have to admit, Mrs. Whatsit is the best at it. What the work proves the craftsman. Shall I transform now too? Mrs. Witch shook her head. Not yet. Not here. You may wait. Now, don't be frightened, loves, Mrs. Whatsit said. Her plump little body began to shimmer and quiver and shift. The wild colors of her clothes became muted, whitened. The pudding bag shape stretched, lengthened, and merged. And she suddenly, before the children, was a creature more beautiful than anything Meg had ever imagined. And the beauty lay in far more than the outward description. Outwardly, Mrs. Whatsit was surely no longer Mrs. Whatsit. She was a marble white body with powerful flanks, something like a horse, but at the same time completely unhorse-like. For from the magnificently modeled back sprang a nobly formed torso, arms, and a head resembling a man's, but a man with a perfection of dignity and virtue, an exaltation of joy such as Meg's had never seen before. No, she thought, it isn't like a Greek centaur, not in the least. From the shoulders, slowly a pair of wings unfolded, wings made of rainbows, of light upon water, and of poetry. Calvin fell to his knees. No, Mrs. Whatsit said, though her voice was not Mrs. Whatsit's. Not to me, Calvin, never to me. Stand up. Carry them, Mrs. Witch commanded. With a gesture both delicate and strong, Mrs. Whatsit knelt in front of the children, stretching out her wings wide and holding them steady but quivering. Onto my back now, a new voice said. The children took hesitant steps toward the beautiful creature. But what do we call you now? Calvin asked. Oh, my dears, came a new voice, a rich voice with the warmth of a woodwind, the clarity of a trumpet, and the mystery of a French horn. You can't go on changing my name each time I metamorphose. And I've had such pleasure being Mrs. Whatsit, I think you'd better keep doing that. She, he, it smiled at them, and the radiance of that smile was so tangible as a soft breeze, as directly warming as the rays of the sun. Come, Charles Wallace clambered up. Meg and Calvin followed him, Meg sitting between the two boys. A tremor went through the great wings, and then Mrs. Whatsit lifted, and they were moving through the air. Meg soon found that there was no need to cling to Charles Wallace or Calvin. The great creature's flight was serenely smooth. The boys were eagerly looking around the landscape. Look, Charles Wallace pointed. The mountains are so tall, you can't see where they end. Meg looked upward, and indeed the mountains seemed to be reaching into infinity. They left the fertile fields and flew across the great plateau of granite-like rock shaped into enormous monoliths. These had a definite rhythmic form, but they were not statues. They were like nothing Meg had ever seen before, and she wondered if they had been made by wind and weather, by the formation of the earth, or if they were creations of beings like the ones on which she rode. They left the great granite plain and flew over the garden, even more beautiful than anything in a dream. In it were gathered many of the creatures like the one Mrs. Whatsit had become, some lying among the flowers, some swimming on a board, crystal rivers that flowed through the garden, some flying in what Meg was sure must be a kind of dance moving in and out above the trees. They were making music that came only from the throats but from the movements of the great wings as well. What are they singing? Meg asked excitedly. Mrs. Whatsit shook her head. It won't go into your words. I can't possibly transform it into your words. Are you getting any of it, Charles? Charles Wallace sat very still on the broad back. On his face, an intently listening look. The look he had when he delved into Meg or his mother. A little, just a very little, but I think I could get more in time. Yes, you could learn it, Charles, but there isn't time. We can only stay here long enough to rest up and make a few preparations. Meg hardly listened to her. I want to know what they're saying. I want to know what it means. Try Charles, Mrs. Whatsit urged. Try to translate. You can let yourself go now. You don't have to hold back. But I can't, Charles Wallace cried with an anguished voice. I don't know enough, not yet. Then try to work with me, and I'll see if I can't verbalize it a little bit for them. Charles Wallace got that look of probing, of listening. I know that look, Meg thought suddenly. Now I think I know what it means. Because I've had it myself. Sometimes doing math with Father, when a problem was just about to become clear. Mrs. Whatsit seemed to be listening to Charles's thoughts. Well, yes, that's an idea. I can try. Too bad you don't really know it, so you can give it to me direct, Charles. It's so much more work this way. Oh, don't be lazy, Charles said. Mrs. Whatsit did not take offense. She explained, Oh, it's my favorite kind of work, Charles. That's why they chose me to go along, even though I'm so much younger. It's my one real talent, but it takes a tremendous amount of energy, and we're going to need every ounce of energy for what's ahead of us. But I'll try. For Calvin and for Meg, I will try. She was silent. The great wings almost stopped moving. Only a delicate stirring seemed to keep them aloft. Listen, then, Mrs. Whatsit said. The resonant voice rose and the words seemed to be all around them so that Meg felt that she could be reaching out and touching them. Sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth. Ye that go down to the sea, and all that is therein, the isles and the inhabitations thereof. Let the wilderness and the cities thereof lift their voices. Let the inhabitants of the rocks sing. Let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory unto the Lord. Throughout her entire body, Meg felt a pulse of joy, such as she had never known before. Calvin's hand reached out. He did not clasp her hand in his. He moved his fingers so they were barely touching hers, but joy flowed through them, back and forth between them, around them and about them and inside them. Then Mrs. Whatsit sighed, and it seemed completely incomprehensible that through this bliss could come the faintest whisper of doubt. We must go now, children. Mrs. Whatsit's voice was deep with sadness, and Meg could not understand. Raising her head, Mrs. Whatsit gave a call that seemed to be a command, and one of the creatures flying above the trees nearest them raised its head to listen, and then flew off and picked 3 flowers from three trees growing near the river, and brought them over. Each of you take one, Mrs. Whatsit said. I'll tell you how to use them later. As Meg took her flower, she realized that it was not a single blossom, but hundreds of tiny florets forming a kind of hollow bell. Where are we going? Calvin asked. Up. The wings moved steadily, swiftly. The garden was left behind, the stretch of granite, the mighty shapes, and then Mrs. Whatsit is flying upward, climbing steadily up, up, up. Below them, the trees of the mountain dwindled, became sparse, were replaced by bushes and then small dry grasses, and then vegetation ceased entirely, and there were only rocks, points and peaks of sharp, tiny rocks and danger. Hold on tight, Mrs. Whatsit said. Don't slip. Meg felt Calvin's arm circle her waist in a secure hold. Still, they were moving upward. Now they were in the clouds. They could see nothing but drifting whiteness, and the moisture clung to them and condensed in icy droplets. As Meg shivered, Calvin's grip tightened. In front of her, Charles Wallace sat quietly. Once he turned just long enough to give her a swift glance of tenderness and concern, but Meg felt as each moment passed that he was growing farther and farther away, that he was becoming less and less her adored baby brother, and more one with whatever kind of being that Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which in actuality were. Abruptly, they burst out of the clouds into a shaft of light. Below them, there were still rocks. Moving above them, the rocks continued to reach up to the sky. But now, though it seemed miles upward, Meg could see where the mountains at last came to an end. Mrs. Whatsit continued to climb. Her wings strained a little. Meg felt her heart racing. Cold sweat began to gather on her face, and her lips felt as though they were turning blue. She began to gasp. All right, children. Use your flowers now, Mrs. Whatsit said. The atmosphere will continue to get thinner from now on. Hold the flowers up to your face and breathe through them, and they will give you enough oxygen. It won't be as much as you're used to, but it will be enough. Meg had forgotten all about the flowers and was grateful to realize that she was still clasping them, that she hadn't let them fall through her fingers. She pressed her face with the blossom and breathed deeply. Calvin still held her with one arm, but he too held the flowers to his face and inhaled. Charles Wallace moved the hand with his flowers slowly, almost as though he were in a dream. Mrs. Whatsit's wings strained against the thinness of the atmosphere. The summit was only a little way above them, and then they were there too. Mrs. Whatsit came to a rest in a small plateau of smooth silvery rock. There, ahead of them, was a great white disk. One of Uriel's moons, Mrs. Whatsit told them, her voice faintly breathless. Oh, it's beautiful, cried Meg. It's just beautiful. The silver light from the enormous moon poured over them, blending with the golden quality of the day, flowing over the children, over Mrs. Whatsit, over the moon peak. Now we will turn around, Mrs. Whatsit said, and at the quality of her voice, Meg was frightened again. But when they turned, she saw nothing. Ahead of them was a thin, clear blue of sky. Below them, rocks threshing out of the shifting sea of white clouds. Now we will wait, Mrs. Whatsit said, for sunset and moonset. Almost as she spoke, the light began to deepen, to darken. I want to watch the moon set, Charles Wallace said. No, child, do not turn around, any of you. Face out toward the darkness. What I have to show you will be more visible then. Look ahead, straight ahead, as far as you can possibly look. Meg's eyes ached from strain of looking and seeing nothing. Then above the clouds which encircled the mountain, she seemed to see a shadow, a faint thing of darkness so far off that she was scarcely sure that she was really seeing at all. Charles Wallace, what's that? The sort of shadow came out, Calvin. That sort of shadow out there, Calvin gestured. What is it? I don't like it. Watch, Mrs. Whatsit commanded. It was a shadow, nothing but a shadow. It was not even as tangible as a cloud. Was it cast by something, or was it a thing in itself? The sky darkened. The gold left the light, and they were surrounded by blue. Blue deepening until there had been nothing but the evening sky. There was now a faint pulse of a star. And then another, and another, and another. There were more stars than Meg had ever seen before. The atmosphere is so thin here, Mrs. Whatsit said, as though to answer her unasked questions, that it does not obscure your vision as it would at home. Now look, straight ahead. Meg looked. The dark shadow was still there, and it had not lessened or dispersed with the coming of night. And there were the shadow, and where the shadow was, the stars were not visible. What could there be about a shadow that is so terrible that she knew that there had never been before, or ever would be again, anything that could chill her with such fear that this was shuddering, beyond crying and screaming, beyond the possibility of comfort? Meg's hand holding the blossoms slowly dropped, and it seemed as though a knife gashed through her lungs. She gasped, but there was no air for her to breathe. Darkness glazed her eyes and mine, but she started to fall into unconsciousness, and her head dropped down into the flowers which she was still clutching. And as she inhaled the fragrance of their purity, her mind and body revived, and she sat up again. The shadow was still there, dark and dreadful. Calvin held her hand strongly in his, but she felt neither strength nor reassurance in his touch. Beside her, a tremor rent through Charles Wallace, but he sat very still. He shouldn't be seeing this, Meg thought. This is too much for so little a boy, no matter how different and extraordinary a little boy. Calvin turned, rejecting the dark thing that blotted out the light of the stars. Make it go away, Mrs. Whatsit, he whispered. Make it go away, it's evil. Slowly, the great creature turned around so that the shadow was behind them, so that they saw only the stars obscured. The soft throb of starlight on mountain, the descending circle of the great moon swiftly slipping over the horizon. Then, without a word from Mrs. Whatsit, they were traveling downward, down, down. Then they reached the corona of clouds where Mrs. Whatsit said, "You can breathe without the flowers now, my children." Silence again. Not a word. It was as though the shadow had somehow reached out with its dark power and touched them so that they were incapable of speech. When they got back to the flowery field, bathed now in starlight and moonlight from another, smaller, yellower rising moon, a little of the tenseness went out of their bodies, and they realized that the body of the beautiful creature on which they had ridden had been as rigid as theirs. With a graceful gesture, it dropped them to the ground and folded its great wings. Charles Wallace was the first to slide off. "Mrs. Who? Mrs. Which?" he called, and there was an immediate quiver in the air. Mrs. Who's familiar glasses gleamed at them. Mrs. Which appeared too, but she had told the children it was difficult for her to materialize completely, and though there was the robe and a peaked hat, Meg could look through them, could look through them to the mountains and to the stars. She slid off Mrs. What's-Its back and walked, rather unsteadily after a long ride, over to Mrs. Witch. "That dark thing we saw," she said. Is that why my father was fighting? And that, friends, is the end of chapter 4 of A Wrinkle in Time. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode of the Fab Lab Digital Daycare. I can't wait to see you tomorrow.